Hello, class. Welcome today. So, we don't have all the time in the world in geography class. And so, when we're talking about each individual country, with time being of the essence, I have to go and basically do a very compressed 10-minute history of the very important aspects of a nation, which simplify a lot of things. You skip over a lot of other things, but that's the way you can get through the most things during that period of time. And so this is what I would do with Spain. Okay, so we want to look back to where is the first idea of something as a country, as a known entity. And so you can go back to the Roman Empire where you have Hispania as something that it conquers. Okay, and so Latin being very close to Spanish as a romantic language, you can probably see some comparisons here about how you would say Spain today. In America, the term Hispanic going through there. So we have that. Now, once Rome falls, it is overrun by all these barbarian tribes. And Europe is broken up. And so the Iberian Peninsula and what is today Spain are going to be controlled by these Gothic kingdoms by the 400s AD. Now, a lot of these other parts of Western Europe, these Gothic kingdoms, they eventually become Christianized, and they can go into things that we can resemble today in like France and in England. What's going to happen in Spain is a little bit different. And that is the advent of Islam occurring in the Middle East and with the Prophet Muhammad. And after his death, a great empire of a lot of landmass comes through, and it's the Mayan dynasty. And so it starts in the Middle East. They're expanding out into Central Asia, North Africa, and then they're going to make it all the way up through the Iberian Peninsula and conquer Spain. And a lot of these rulers of Spain are going to be called by people in Europe as Moors, and a thing like Moorish Spain, how it'll be referred to. And so Spain's kind of unique in Western Europe during this time because there is a domination from a Muslim empire compared to the Christian kingdoms of Europe. And eventually, within the Umayyad dynasty, there's going to be a caliphate that's basically in charge of just Spain. Okay, the Caliphate of Cordoba. Now, this is something that goes back and forth. Okay, when we think about the Crusades, we usually think about the Middle East, and there are a lot of things going on there. But this fight between Christians and Muslims in the Middle Ages is more than just that. And so, mostly with France, because it has this land border, there's going to be going back and forth. Going to be a time when the Moors try to go into France, and be time that France tries to push back into Spain, and it's this view of Muslim versus Christian. And so this eventually leads to what they would call in English the Reconquest. Okay, this is a very specific Christian worldview that Spain needs to be reconquered in the name of Jesus, but where Spain is divided up as there's the decline of these Muslim empires. And so by the 15th century, the 1400s, you have all these different Christian kingdoms. And with these Christian kingdoms, the two largest ones are going to be Castile and Aragon. And they're going to get unified in 1469 when there's the marriage of Ferdinand and Isabella that bring together Aragon and Castile to a united Spain. Now, to American audiences, we mostly know Ferdinand and Isabella because they gave money to Christopher Columbus to go to the New World. But, that's not what their most significant thing is in Spain, is that they made a united Spain. They also very Christian and Catholic kingdom, and which Muslims and Jews are going to be expected to either convert to Christianity or be exiled, deported out of the new kingdom. So we fast forward several hundred years. Okay, Spain's going to build this huge empire. It's going to be this time was it's a big world power. We get to the War of the Spanish Succession. It's not the only war that's named after succession. Austrian succession is another one that's pretty large in European history. And this is a war that occurs because the balance of power in Europe of one group getting too powerful, this is threatened. That's because you have Charles II, he's a Habsburg, he dies without children. And both of the people that have the best claim to the throne from him are people that are already going to be in charge of other important areas in Europe. So you have Philippe, he's from France, he's the Duke of Anjou. He's like third in line to be King of France. So he's not necessarily expected to be the King of France, but he's pretty high in that line of succession. And he's the great nephew. So he has, just as a family tie, the best claim to the throne. Then you have Charles VI, who's more distant related, but he's from that house of Habsburg. There were these Austrian Habsburgs and the Spanish Habsburgs, and they were all very intermarried. But you can probably see their literal facial resemblance. Who's going to make that claim? Now, the Holy Roman Emperor is in an elected position, but it's almost always someone in the House of Habsburg. And so you're either going to have someone that could be the King of France and the King of Spain, or someone that's in charge of like what is Germany today and Spain. That's a lot of area. So what's going to happen with the War of the Spanish Succession after a lot of fighting is that Philippe's going to become eventually the King of Spain. But he agrees to renounce his place in the French line of succession. However, and so the Holy Roman Emperor Charles, he loses. And there's other things that are going to affect Europe during this. As you can see, France and Spain are going to be pulling from pretty similar gene pool when it comes to their royal family. So fast forward again. There was the French Revolution. Okay? And you're going to see the king get killed in France. And initially, Spain goes to war with France. They don't like revolutionary France. Okay, that's their relative. But eventually, once Napoleon Bonaparte gets in charge of France, Spain will become an unlikely ally after they've lost a war with France. However, Napoleon has trust issues, and he is going to do something that he did in other places, where he is going to place a member of his own family on the throne. So he's going to get rid of the Bourbon monarchs in Spain and replace them with his brother Joseph. And his brother Joseph is not a credible king of Spain. He has no real argument for it. Napoleon's doing this by force, and there's going to be constant resistance to his rule. If you've heard of guerrilla warfare, that term comes from this conflict where the people in Spain continuing to fight non-traditional warfare after their military has been defeated. Now, after Napoleon's defeat, the Spanish monarchy is restored. However, things are not all back to normal because you have had a bunch of revolutions in Latin America. Simón Bolívar being one of the most prominent revolutionaries, where Spain's losing a lot of its colonies. So we do another fast forward leap up again to the Spanish Civil War. And it's kind of the precursor to World War II. We're going to see a lot of things that happened in World War II occur a little bit earlier. And this is a complex topic that deserves its own video. But in the most simplified way, this is a Spanish war between two different groups. You have the Republicans, and this is a Republican in the sense that you are not a monarchist. You don't believe in having a king or a queen. Versus the nationalist. And this is a lot of weird groups being tied together. And there's other countries that are interfering in this war. But in general terms, the Republicans are on the left wing of the political spectrum, and the nationalists are on the right wing of the political spectrum. Well, eventually, with the help of Germany, you are going to have the nationalist win out. And we are going to have a leader come out of Spain called Francisco Franco. And Franco is going to essentially be a dictator. And he stays neutral in World War II. There was the idea that he may have joined the Axis powers, but this never comes to effect. So he's basically in control of Spain for 40 years. And when he becomes an old man, he starts thinking about his succession. And so what's going to occur with this is there's going to be a transition to democracy. And they're going to do it in a way that you might not expect. So you have this military leader who has been essentially a dictator of Spain for 40 years, and he's going to transition them to actual democracy, actual elections by bringing back the monarchy, which seems a little counterintuitive, but he goes and brings Juan Carlos back as the King of Spain. Okay, and so Juan Carlos is still alive. He was born during the middle of the Spanish Civil War. He's the grandson of the last king of Spain before it was abolished, the monarchy. So you're going to bring him in for this time of transition. We have now the Kingdom of Spain. Now, post-Franco, the King of Spain is basically a figurehead. Okay, similar to the King of England. The person that really has power in Spain nowadays is going to be the elected prime minister. And so they have a parliamentary system in which the party that receives the most votes is the most seats is going to try to form a government, and the prime minister is the one that actually has the most power. So this was the way oversimplified history of Spain. I left a ton out, but this is like the type of thing that I try to get done in about 10 minutes that I would have with my geography kids